There is something deeply unsettling to those who secretly plot against you, dear soul. When they imagine you, they often picture someone vulnerable, someone they can shake, someone who will crumble under pressure. But what they fail to realize is that you are not just flesh and blood. You are not just a name or a face they think they know. You are spirit first, and your spirit has been tempered in a fire that they cannot comprehend. Enemies, whether visible or unseen, often operate with the assumption that they are cleverer than the one they target. They believe that their schemes, their whispers, and their subtle manipulations will go unnoticed. They count on your silence to mean weakness. They interpret your gentleness as ignorance, and yet the very silence they misread becomes their downfall. For your silence is not emptiness, it is awareness. You see, chosen ones are not easily deceived, not because they live paranoid lives, but because they live attuned lives. When you have spent time in solitude, in communion with the divine, you develop an inner radar that alerts you to movements in the spirit long before the physical reveals them. You may not always have the details, but you sense shifts. You sense when energy is off, and you sense when eyes are watching. That awareness itself already dismantles many spiritual attacks, because a prepared spirit cannot be blindsided. And here lies the bad news for your enemies. Their energy, their intentions, and their coordinated efforts to disturb your peace. They fail again and again because you are not fighting them on the level of the flesh. They imagine a battle of words, of arguments, of evidence and confrontation. But you stand on a higher battleground, one where their tools simply do not work. How can shadow stand against light? How can envy thrive in the presence of clarity? Think about it. Every time they gossip, your spirit elevates. Every time they plot, you are guided into prayer. Every time they wish failure upon you, doors open in ways they never anticipated. They don't understand how you keep surviving storms that should have wrecked you. They don't understand how, after nights of being talked about, you still rise in peace and even extend kindness. This is the news they can't stand. You are spiritually awake. Their methods were designed for the average person, but you are not average. They cannot comprehend that your training has been long and silent in nights of loneliness, in seasons where you were misunderstood, in deserts where you only had the voice of God as comfort. That training is why you cannot be overtaken by what was meant to weaken you. So today we're going to slow down together and walk through 7 gentle but profound truths. These truths explain why your enemies feel so defeated, why their attacks seem to rebound, and why your path, though quiet, is fortified. Take a deep breath before we continue. Inhale slowly, exhale deeply. Allow your spirit to receive this word with calmness. Let it settle like soft rain on dry soil. Let every sentence remind you that you are covered, you are seen, and you are upheld. Now let us walk through these truths, one by one, with clarity and peace. Point 1. You respond with stillness. While others might scream, throw accusations, or even plot revenge when they are betrayed, the chosen one does something far more unsettling, nothing at all. Your silence is not weakness. It is strategy, it is power, and most importantly, it is truth. When someone wrongs you, they expect you to react. They expect anger, retaliation, or at least the satisfaction of seeing you shaken. But instead, you remain calm, almost detached, like a still lake that refuses to ripple even when stones are thrown at it. And here's the mystery. That silence doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you've mastered what others cannot. You've chosen to let your enemies wrestle with the noise they created, while you continue to dwell in peace. Psychologists have long observed that silence in conflict holds immense power. When one side refuses to engage in shouting or drama, it forces the other side to confront themselves. In fact, studies in human behavior show that silence triggers discomfort because the human mind craves resolution. Your enemies want closure from your reaction. They want to feel victorious by pulling you into their storm. But when you remain silent, it is like holding up a mirror. They see themselves, their bitterness and their envy, and it unsettles them. It's almost like spiritual judo. Instead of fighting back with equal force, you let their own energy throw them off balance. This quiet strength is one of the hallmarks of the chosen one. From ancient spiritual traditions to modern wisdom, silence has always been regarded as sacred. In Christianity, silence before false accusers was exemplified by Christ himself, who often responded not with words but with stillness that carried more weight than arguments ever could. In Eastern philosophy, silence is seen as a weapon of the wise, a reminder that not every battle requires a sword. Sometimes the absence of sound defeats the loudest enemy. And in everyday life, when a chosen one responds to betrayal with silence, it communicates something profound. I am not controlled by you. My peace is not for sale. Think about how unnerving it is when someone expects fireworks but gets nothing. It's like walking into a boxing ring, fists ready, only to realize the other person has no interest in fighting. They simply walk away with their dignity intact. That refusal to engage turns the tables completely. Instead of you carrying the wound, they are left carrying the weight of guilt, confusion, and shame. Your silence does not excuse their behavior, but it reveals it. It places the full spotlight on them while you quietly slip into the shadows of grace and continue your path. The fascinating thing about the chosen one's silence is not passive, it's active, deliberate, and deeply spiritual. You're not silent because you don't know what to say. You're silent because you know words are wasted on certain battles. You understand that reacting loudly often gives power to the very people who tried to shake you. Silence, instead, is the language of strength. It is the refusal to feed the fire, the choice to starve the enemy of your energy. That is why betrayal and envy never truly break you. They only reveal how unshakable you are. And here's the deeper truth. Your silence speaks louder than words ever could. It whispers to the world that you are not a prisoner of circumstance, but a master of self-control. It teaches others, even your enemies, that real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's found in the quiet spaces where the soul refuses to be moved. And for the chosen one, that silence is not empty. It is filled with wisdom, with divine assurance, and with a knowing that the universe itself will handle what your voice does not need to. Point 2. You carry an invisible shield. Spiritual discernment is one of those quiet superpowers that often goes unnoticed, yet it is one of the most powerful tools a chosen one carries within. Unlike the dramatic portrayals of spiritual awakening we see in movies or books, discernment rarely arrives with lightning bolts or booming voices. Instead, it shows up in the subtle shifts, in the whispers of intuition, and in the unexplainable awareness that something is off. It is the feeling when you step into a room and the air feels heavier than it should, when laughter feels rehearsed, or when someone's warm smile masks a hidden dagger of envy. This is not paranoia. It is perception, sharpened by the soul. In many ways, discernment is a spiritual radar, a shield that alerts you to energies and intentions that words cannot reveal. Science, interestingly, offers clues as to why this sense exists. Studies in psychology and neuroscience show that the human brain constantly picks up on micro-expressions, tiny, fleeting facial movements that betray someone's true feelings. Even if the conscious mind doesn't register them, the subconscious does. This explains why you just know when someone isn't being genuine, or why your stomach tightens when a conversation sounds polite but feels wrong. Combine that natural human ability with the heightened awareness of a chosen one, and you get discernment operating at almost supernatural levels. Where others may dismiss their gut feelings, you are tuned in, listening, and guided by a higher wisdom. But here's where it gets fascinating. Discernment is not only about detecting the negative. It also helps you recognize the good that others overlook. You can feel when someone's spirit is pure even if their life looks messy. You can sense when a stranger is meant to cross your path for a divine reason, or when an opportunity that looks ordinary carries hidden blessings. The chosen often carry this dual sight, seeing both the shadows and the light beneath appearances. This is what allows you to navigate life without being easily deceived, manipulated, or led astray. Discernment is less about suspicion and more about clarity, a constant alignment with truth. Think of it like tuning a radio. Most people hear static, while chosen ones have the patience and sensitivity to adjust the dial until the message comes through crystal clear. And because this ability is subtle, it often goes unappreciated by others. They might not understand how you knew to avoid a certain situation or why you felt uneasy around someone everyone else adored. They might call it luck when you avoid disaster, but you know better. It is discernment, your silent guardian. In Scripture, it's often described as a gift of the Spirit, a divine ability to test the spirits and separate truth from deception. That is why, for the chosen, discernment isn't just intuition, it's spiritual protection. Still, having discernment can sometimes feel like a heavy burden. When you see through masks so easily, it can be lonely. You may notice hidden motives in friends, family, or even leaders that others are blind to, and that knowledge can isolate you. Yet this is exactly why chosen ones are given this gift. You are meant to walk with eyes wide open, not closed. Your awareness shields not just you, but also those around you who may not yet see. In fact, many chosen ones unknowingly act as protectors, sensing danger before it arrives and steering others to safety without needing recognition. Ultimately, discernment is less about fear and more about freedom. It liberates you from deception, teaches you to trust the quiet voice within, and keeps you aligned with your higher purpose. The next time you feel that subtle nudge, that whisper telling you to step back, or that warmth urging you to draw closer, don't dismiss it. That is your spiritual discernment at work, your soul's built-in compass, guiding you not through noise or drama, but through stillness and truth. It may not be loud, but its silence is what makes it powerful. And as a chosen one, that shield of awareness is one of your greatest treasures. Point 3. You do not match their energy. When attacked, most people's first instinct is to strike back. The natural human response is often fueled by ego, pride, or the desire to defend oneself. But chosen ones operate differently. You carry an awareness that retaliation often drags you into the very energy that was meant to harm you. It's not that you're weak or passive, far from it. Your restraint is a form of power. You understand that engaging in the same low vibration only strengthens the cycle of negativity, while your silence and composure break it apart. In fact, psychologists have noted that when someone refuses to feed into conflict, the aggressor often loses their power, because conflict requires participation. Without your response, the attack fizzles into nothing more than noise. This behavior can feel unnatural at first, especially in a world that teaches an eye for an eye, or praises those who clap back louder than they were attacked. But chosen ones embody a higher wisdom. You know that every reaction is an exchange of energy, and your energy is precious. Think of it like a bank account. Every time you pour into negativity, you make a withdrawal from your spiritual wealth. Over time, those withdrawals leave you drained. Instead, by refusing to engage, you preserve your energy and keep your vibration intact. Science even backs this up. Studies on stress response show that conflict elevates cortisol levels in the body, depleting your physical and emotional well-being. By not participating, you're not only protecting your peace, but literally protecting your health. Another fascinating truth is that your refusal to retaliate exposes the imbalance in the other person. Chosen ones carry a mirror-like quality. When someone directs hate, envy, or bitterness at you, and you don't reflect it back, their own energy bounces back onto themselves. This is not mystical exaggeration, it's the reality of projection. Psychological projection is when a person sees in you what they're secretly wrestling with inside. If you don't accept that projection, they're left to face their own shadow. That's why attackers often grow frustrated when you remain calm. They wanted a reaction to validate their feelings, but instead, they're forced to confront themselves. History is full of examples of individuals who understood this principle. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of non-retaliation, for instance, dismantled an empire's hold not by brute force but by spiritual discipline. Martin Luther King Jr. echoed this truth when he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that." These men, much like chosen ones today, understood that to lower oneself to the same vibration as the aggressor is to surrender the higher ground. They proved that silence and restraint, when rooted in principle, hold far greater force than anger or revenge. Yet, let's not pretend this is easy. It takes immense strength to bite your tongue when insulted, to keep your spirit calm when provoked, or to walk away when everything inside you wants to fight. This strength, however, is precisely what sets chosen ones apart. You are not led by impulse. You are led by wisdom. While others may think your quietness is weakness, it is actually the mark of discipline. A warrior doesn't need to swing his sword at every passerby. He saves his power for what truly matters. The beauty of this restraint is that it doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. By refusing to engage in the same low vibration, you build an inner fortress. Over time, you notice that attacks no longer affect you the way they once did. Gossip doesn't sting, insults lose their bite, and envy fails to reach your spirit. You realize that peace isn't something you chase, it's something you maintain by choice. And this choice, made repeatedly, crafts a life where your power is undeniable and untouchable. So when attacked, chosen one, remember this. Your silence is not weakness, and your restraint is not passivity. It is your higher self refusing to hand over power to lower vibrations. By staying still in the storm, you reveal what the storm could never shake, the divine strength within you. That is why, in the end, the attack doesn't defeat you, it defeats itself. Point 4. You have spiritual endurance. Your enemies are often short-sighted, chosen one. They act in the heat of the moment, hoping that one sharp strike, one whispered rumor, or one well-placed obstacle will be enough to bring you to your knees. Their mindset is rooted in impatience. They want results instantly. This is a reflection of human nature at its most reactive, the desire for quick gratification without understanding the deeper currents of life. But you, chosen one, you are not built on quicksand. You are built on the bedrock of patience, faith, and resilience. That is why their schemes, however loud in the moment, eventually collapse under the weight of time, while you continue standing tall. Your endurance becomes the very thing that disappoints them, because they cannot comprehend how you keep rising after every attempt to push you down. There's a fascinating truth here that even psychology and history echo. People who act impulsively often sabotage themselves. Studies in behavioral science show that short-term thinkers consistently underestimate the power of consistency and long-term discipline. Ancient leaders, spiritual figures, and reformers all understood this. Think about it. Empires have risen and fallen because of short-sighted decisions, but those who rooted their actions in patience, strategy, and spiritual grounding became legends. That same principle is alive in your journey. When your enemies try to shake you, they reveal their own weakness. They believe destruction is instant, forgetting that true strength is often invisible, unfolding quietly over time like the steady growth of a tree. And that's the secret, chosen one. You are like a tree planted by divine waters. Storms come, winds howl, and people may even try to chop at your branches, but because your roots go deep, you endure. That endurance isn't random. It's tied to your connection with the source, your inner knowing that life isn't about temporary victories, but eternal truths. Enemies don't see this. They only see the surface. They only see what can be touched, attacked, or manipulated. What they don't realize is that your foundation is spiritual, and what is spiritual cannot be dismantled by human hands. There's also a paradox in how enemies work against you. The more they attack, the more they unknowingly sharpen you. Every lie told about you forces you to lean deeper into truth. Every betrayal teaches you discernment. Every attempt to discourage you builds a reservoir of patience and faith. In nature, diamonds form under pressure, and pearls are created by irritation inside an oyster. Your enemies, without realizing it, become unwilling participants in your transformation. What they mean for harm becomes the very force that polishes you into someone unbreakable. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Consistency is not just a defense, it's an offense. When you keep moving forward, despite opposition, you dismantle their power. They expect you to stop, to give up, to collapse. When you don't, they are forced to watch the failure of their own efforts. It is psychologically devastating for someone to realize that all their plotting, all their time, all their energy invested in seeing you fall has produced nothing but your growth. That's why chosen ones are often misunderstood. Your ability to keep shining despite darkness is something your enemies cannot calculate because their vision does not extend that far. So, chosen one, the next time you feel resistance, remember, their short-sightedness is your advantage. While they play checkers, you're living out a divine chess game. While they rush for quick victories, you are being prepared for lasting ones. Your patience is not passive, it is power. Your faith is not weakness, it is your fortress. And your consistency, day after day, is not ordinary. It is the very miracle that makes your enemy's efforts crumble into dust. Stay steady, stay rooted, and let your endurance preach louder than their attacks ever could. Point 5. You are not dependent on their approval. Most attacks against the chosen one don't come in the form of physical blows, but through subtle and deliberate attempts to damage your name, fracture your relationships, and leave you standing alone in a crowd. This is a tactic as old as time itself, because reputation is a powerful currency in human society. From ancient tribal communities to modern workplaces, people have often judged worthiness not by truth, but by perception. And when someone envies your light or feels threatened by your quiet strength, they'll often attempt to dim it by whispering doubts about who you are. They know that if they can isolate you, they can weaken you. But here's where the story shifts. When your confidence is not tied to human approval but deeply anchored in God, their schemes lose their sting. You stop playing their game because you've realized the only validation worth holding onto doesn't come from gossiping mouths, but from the source that never changes. Psychologically, humans crave acceptance. Our brains are wired to seek belonging because survival once depended on staying within the safety of the tribe. That's why isolation feels so unbearable to many people. It can even trigger the same part of the brain as physical pain. The chosen one, however, learns to live beyond this programming. You've discovered that solitude with God is more life-giving than false community with those who never had your back to begin with. The very thing they intended to use against you, loneliness, becomes your sanctuary of strength. You stop fearing silence because you recognize it as a place where divine wisdom whispers. Think of biblical examples like Joseph, who was cast aside by his brothers, or Daniel, who was thrown into the lion's den. Both were isolated, both had their reputations attacked, yet both were elevated because their foundation was built on something no human hand could shake. What makes this truly captivating is that the attacks often backfire. When people try to smear you, others eventually notice a pattern. Why is this person always the target? Curiosity is sparked, and instead of believing the lies, people begin to watch more closely. They start to see your consistency, your calm spirit, your refusal to retaliate. In a strange twist, the attempt to tarnish you actually polishes your authenticity. This phenomenon is supported even in modern sociology. False narratives collapse when reality consistently proves otherwise. Reputation built on slander has a short shelf life, but character built on faith endures. And let's not forget the irony. Those who try to isolate you only reveal their own insecurities. They cling to the fragile approval of others like a lifeline while you walk freely with no leash attached. They need validation to breathe. You breathe freely because your lungs are filled with God's assurance. There's a quiet power in that. It unnerves them. It confuses them. It makes them wonder how you can still walk with your head high when their daggers should have pierced you. What they fail to realize is that confidence rooted in God functions like armor. It doesn't stop the arrows from being shot, but it ensures they don't penetrate the heart. Chosen one, your journey is a living testimony that you don't need the applause of the crowd to fulfill your purpose. Attacks will come. Reputations will be questioned. Isolation will be attempted. But when your identity is anchored in something eternal, the storms can rage and the voices can rise, yet you remain unshaken. That is the paradox of divine confidence. It doesn't make the battles disappear, but it makes you undefeatable in them. And in the end, the same people who once tried to bury you will be forced to witness your roots breaking through the soil, stronger than ever, blossoming where no one expected life to grow. Point 6. You turn attacks into growth. Every challenge you face, chosen one, is not simply an inconvenience, it is a chiseling of the soul. Life does not waste hardship, it refines you through it. Think of the process of refining gold. When it is first extracted, it is raw, unpolished, and riddled with impurities. It only becomes valuable after it passes through intense fire, where the heat burns away everything that does not belong. In the same way, your struggles are the fire. They are not designed to destroy you, but to strip away fear, doubt, pride, and weakness until the truest version of you shines forth. This is why chosen individuals often endure more than others. Their calling requires a deeper purification. Where others collapse under pressure, you transform that pressure into prayer, and that prayer is never wasted. It doesn't vanish into the air. It carries energy, intention, and alignment with divine order. Modern science actually validates this ancient truth. Neuroscience studies have revealed that consistent prayer and meditation can literally reshape the brain. Techniques like mindfulness and spiritual devotion strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain linked with decision-making, resilience, and self-control. Prayer also reduces activity in the amygdala, the region associated with fear and stress. This means that your spiritual practice is not only connecting you with God, it is rewiring your mind to handle adversity with greater strength and clarity. That's why rejection never truly breaks you, it redirects you. A closed door is not evidence of failure, but divine construction at work. It is a rerouting to a path where your gifts can bear more fruit. What felt like abandonment was actually protection, steering you away from people and places that could not sustain the weight of your calling. Your enemies, of course, never understand this. They believe their gossip, betrayal, or schemes will weaken you. They imagine that if they apply enough pressure, you will fold. Yet history and nature reveal a different pattern. The same pressure that shatters fragile glass also transforms coal into diamonds. Hardship does not destroy the chosen. It refines them into something unbreakable. Many of the greatest leaders and visionaries the world has ever known endured the cruelty of betrayal, imprisonment, and opposition. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years. Yet he emerged with a vision that dismantled apartheid and reshaped a nation. Martin Luther King Jr. faced constant threats, slander, and eventually martyrdom. Yet his words and actions birthed a movement that still echoes today. These individuals did not allow external attacks to dictate their destiny. Instead, they converted them into fuel. This is the mark of the chosen. Adversity is never wasted. It becomes ammunition for destiny. Consider how storms function in nature. At first glance, they appear destructive, tearing through cities and landscapes with unrelenting force. Yet storms also restore balance, clear away decay, and release nutrients into the soil that make room for new growth. In the same way, the storms in your life may seem like they are meant to drown you, but in truth, they are equipping you to walk on water. Every obstacle you encounter carries within it the seed of elevation. Where the average person sees a setback, you are being trained to see a setup. Each trial is not a punishment but a preparation, forging a resilience and wisdom that can only be birthed in the flames of difficulty. And this is why people marvel at you. They cannot understand why you are still standing after everything you've endured. They do not grasp why betrayal, heartbreak, or loss has not made you bitter but wiser. It is because you have learned that the chosen are not spared from battles, they are trained by them. Just as soldiers cannot be prepared without the tension of combat drills, your soul cannot rise to its full strength without the testing of life's battles. What others interpret as suffering is, in reality, your spiritual gymnasium. Every trial is a weight you lift, every opposition a resistance that builds your endurance. Science again offers a fascinating parallel. Psychologists studying resilience have found that individuals who experience and overcome adversity develop what is called post-traumatic growth. Unlike post-traumatic stress, which focuses on damage, this growth emphasizes the unexpected benefits that emerge after hardship. Survivors of great trials often report deeper gratitude, stronger faith, clearer priorities, and a heightened sense of purpose. This is precisely why chosen individuals carry an aura that feels unshakable. You have been through fire and emerged not charred but glowing, bearing wisdom that cannot be purchased or inherited. It must be forged. Look back at your own life. Recall the moments when you thought you had reached the end, when circumstances pressed so heavily against you that survival seemed impossible. Yet somehow you made it through. And not only did you make it, you emerged with insights, empathy, and strength you did not possess before. The fire did not consume you, it refined you. That is the essence of being chosen. So the next time you face rejection, betrayal, or hardship, do not interpret it as abandonment. Recognize it as divine redirection. Remember the refining of gold, the coal becoming diamond, the storm fertilizing the soil, and the prayer reshaping the brain. These are not metaphors only. They are truths embedded in both creation and human history. You are not fragile glass, you are gold in the furnace, a diamond under pressure, and soil enriched by the storm. Point 7. You walk with divine backing. At the deepest level, the reason attacks against a chosen one fail is because of a truth that cannot be shaken. You are never walking alone. The presence of God surrounds you like an unseen shield, moving with you through every season of your life. This isn't just poetic language, it's a spiritual reality that has been testified to for centuries. Think about it. History is filled with stories of people who faced impossible odds and enemies with well-crafted strategies, and yet they stood unbroken. Why? Because when the divine has marked you with purpose, no plan formed against you can override that order. It's not just protection, it's alignment with something much greater than human intent. Enemies may plot in secrecy, calculating every step with precision, but their plans unravel the moment they collide with divine timing. It's almost like trying to play a game of chess against someone who already knows every possible move before it happens. The chosen carry a spiritual blueprint written long before their enemies even thought of attacking. That blueprint ensures that what was meant for destruction often ends up redirecting them into greater strength and wisdom. The truth is, the more resistance you face, the clearer it becomes that your journey isn't ordinary. It's orchestrated. Science might call it resilience, psychology might call it grit, but in spiritual language, it's God's covering. Modern research even shows how people of faith endure stress differently. Prayer, meditation, and trust in a higher power literally calm the nervous system, strengthen the immune system, and sharpen focus. What looks like supernatural endurance from the outside is actually a combination of the spiritual and the physical working in perfect harmony. Attacks fail not just because God blocks them, but because His presence transforms you in the midst of them, making you stronger, wiser, and more discerning each time. So, when the storms rise, understand this. Their power is limited, but your protection is eternal. Every attack only proves the undeniable truth, that you are chosen, covered, and destined for a path that no enemy can erase. The divine order always has the final word, and it always speaks victory. So the bad news for your enemies is not that you fight harder than they do, but that you live on a frequency they cannot touch. You win, not through force, but through alignment. You thrive, not through striving, but through surrender. And while they spend their energy trying to trip you, you continue to walk steadily on your path, unmoved, covered, and free. Your peace is your victory. Your endurance is your shield. And your connection with the divine ensures that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Take another deep breath, beloved. Let this truth sink in. You have already outsmarted every attack, simply by staying rooted in spirit.